The running back substitution seemed to really work well. Can you walk through what was going through your guys' mind, like the quarterly thing and how that paid off for the team?
Yeah, I don't even know if it was thought to it, to be quite honest with you. I think it just kind of worked that way a little bit as the game went. Obviously Carson got really hot in the fourth quarter. I thought Abu had a really good third quarter. And, when you got two backs like that, you kind of just want to try to get them into a rhythm and try to go with a hot hand as it kind of comes its way. But really thought both those guys played great football. And I thought Carson was elite, really in the fourth quarter.
And how much of that, too, was the offensive line? Just because you said in your postgame that weren't great in the first half, and then they got better and better throughout the game. What did you see when you watched it back?
Yeah, I think the first half, you're kind of feeling your way through a new defense and some different things that they threw at you. And, probably the O-line's frustration, I'm sure, came more a little bit pass protection-wise just in the game. I just think offensively we were trying to find our rhythm early. And, I thought there were spurts of it in the first half. I really thought we settled in the second half. So I thought really great adjustments by all the kids, our staff. And, I think more than anything, we just found a really good rhythm in the second half of the football game.
You obviously put a lot of time and effort in the offseason into how you were going to navigate these first couple weeks here. How has it gone for you so far? How's the routine maybe been a little different this game week than what it is typically?
Yeah, I think we'll find out a lot more this week, to be honest with you, in the coming weeks. Obviously, it was great to have success over there. I thought our staff set our kids up for great success, our nutrition team, our strength team, our athletic training team. But I think the real result will come of, how do we work through these coming weeks? And, again, nobody has done that with success, and we'll see if we can. So it's a great challenge for all of us.
What was the discussion like preseason with Jeremiah Cooper and moving him to corner and like what your input was, what he thought, and how do you think that played out on Saturday?
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing was trying to put our best 11 players on the field, and we're always trying to do that. Coop's got such great position flexibility. He's played corner for us here in the past. He's played nickel. Obviously, he's played safety. So I think that speaks more than anything to Coop's, I think just his ability to be so fluid as a football player and what kind of football player he is. I thought he was elite in the game. I thought maybe one of the best games I've seen Jeremiah Cooper play in his career. And, physical at the point of attack. I thought he did a really good job in the passing game. And, he's got a lot of confidence. And, I think as any great player, you love to have position flexibility and, the ability to adapt to that and do what's best for the team was awesome. So, I think that kind of transitioned a little bit through camp and, just kind of trying to put the best 11 on the field that we feel gives us the best chance to win.
What is the significance of having the 2000 team back this weekend and being able to honor them this Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's really awesome. I obviously what Coach Mack did here, taking this program where it was at the time he inherited it to, I think, giving Iowa State football real belief, and obviously what that 2000 team did was, what I think we continue to try to do here is break barriers. And they were able to do that with the first bowl win. And, some of those great players have been just such an anchor to so many of us, to be honest with you, since our time here at Iowa State of how do we push this program forward? How do we continue to try to find a place where sustained success can actually occur in the football program? And not only have they been, during their time here, great players, but since their time, they've been an anchor for our success. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today for sure.
And with Jeremiah, at what point in the offseason or preseason did you guys have that position change conversation? And at what point of the preseason did you guys feel like we're going to stick with him there?
Yeah, I think somewhere right around the middle part of camp, and again, I just think there was absolute confidence he could do it. I think more than anything is trying to find what are the best 11 guys and how do we have the best rotation. I think, with Kaijan's growth and what he's doing, I think Van Dinter, both those guys, man, they had some really great plays on Saturday, and they continue to push the envelope forward. We think those guys got a chance to be really special players. And so I think it just solidified things. Trey Bell played great Saturday. So I think it gives us the most depth. It gives us the most skill on the field, and feel really confident. It also allows us to be probably maybe as multiple as we've been able to be defensively. So I just felt all those things allowed us to put our best 11 on the field in some critical moments.
There was a specific instance Saturday, I think, where Kale went down injured, and then you guys were charged with the timeout relative to the way that new rule works. Do you have to change the way you communicate to players that if, hey, you feel like you may not be able to go on the next play to kind of go down for the betterment of the team, so we can keep our timeouts? So, how do you evaluate that situation moving forward now that you've experienced once?
Yeah, I don't know. You got to try to teach off of it. Obviously, that was a really unique situation. It's not like, we're not the team that rule was made for. So there was a couple instances that happened Saturday that are befuddling, but it is part of the journey. They're great teaching opportunities, and probably globally great teaching opportunities. So, yeah, communication, I think all those things are important.
As you look back at the way the team has come over back from Ireland, how has the team's rest and recovery aspect, whether it's like the Nordatech boots or getting the necessary things that they need, how has that maybe been altered relative to a typical game week?
Yeah, I just think probably the length of time, on the practice field more than anything today, getting them every opportunity to, get the most amount of sleep and recovery that they can get. I think that's probably been the biggest emphasis. I thought we had a really good practice today. I think you're kind of back to normal a little bit starting tomorrow in terms of we're a morning practice team. So that part of it obviously challenges sleep sometimes too. But man, every kid was in class on Monday. We didn't have one kid miss a class, and we're not going to flinch and make excuses. It is what it is. It's part of the journey. But I think the personal accountability of our kids to be able to handle this. Obviously, school's also starting this week. What a other unique challenge for a lot of guys. And, boy, your schedule and process of how you handle a day, a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, man, that's big, especially, having a home game and a home game against a team that, you've got the utmost respect for. I think those are all great challenges.
Saturday's game, I think you had 6 receivers that had 2 or more receptions. How much does that sort of open up options for both Rocco and for Mauser in terms of guys that they can go to?
Yeah, I just think there's that's going to continue to grow. I think we feel on top of that, there's probably way more guys that either could have had receptions or will continue to have receptions. And so, I think to me, that's a benefit of this team as it continues to kind of grow. Who are your A players, A moments? You saw some guys make some A moment plays on Saturday, which were huge. And I just think as the confidence grows, we have a lot of confidence in these players. They've got to have confidence in themselves to make the critical plays in the moment. And, I think that part's going to be really fun to watch continue to move forward. But it's a process, and I think it'll take to the midpoint of the season or more to figure out exactly what we are and what we've got the ability to be.
Speaking of guys that could contribute more, I think your 2 transfer portal receivers were not as prevalent as people expected them to be. Is that part of them still learning the system, or how do you see them contributing moving forward?
Yeah, again, there's really good players. I don't know. Both those guys played. So, to me, both those guys kind of been hampered by some injuries a little bit through, spring ball in the offseason. So they got a little bit slower jump to things than maybe, what everybody else is. So I think those guys are just working through it. And, it's a process, and it's going to take time, but I think we feel super confident in both of those guys. And obviously, I think equally feel really confident in the guys that made plays on Saturday. So, to me, it's a huge positive. We got so many guys that we feel like can play, and we know this is going to be a long season, and everybody's probably every week it's going to be a different person that's going to have the ability to step up and make some plays, and that part's exciting.
Coach, kind of a 2-part question. What did you see from Aidan Bouman when he was in your program, and what's the challenge of preparing for a quarterback who has a chip on his shoulder probably?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say about Aidan is, boy, the respect. I mean, we recruited him. We love his family. We love Aidan. What he's been about was nothing short of first class every step of the way here. I think he found an unbelievable opportunity, and he's maximized it. I mean, that guy's played so much good football. What he's done is literally taken that South Dakota team into a, national title contender, and, I think won the conference a year ago, had huge wins, and, just every year he's just added, and it's like what some of the great quarterbacks we've had here have done. And so that's part of college football today, but to me, that's one of the great respect factors we have. We know we're getting an elite quarterback coming in. I think Aidan has maximized every opportunity that he's been able to take advantage of and put himself and his team in a great position to be a true contender. So we know what this South Dakota team is. On top of that, he's been coupled with, he's given that team belief and confidence. And, you're going to get a team that's physical, a team that knows how to win football games, and a team that's going to come in here with, every opportunity to go win the football game.
The game that Dominic Orange played on Saturday, it looked, at least where I sat, like one of his best. Would you agree with that when you've gone back and watched it?
Yeah, Chris, I think he's played so much good football here. He played like you would expect him to play, like an A football player that's a guy that's going into a senior year and, has got the ability to play really consistently good football. And Dom's worked really hard. I think he's made just such great transition. I think you've seen it almost every year. You saw that really at the end of the season last year. I think those last 4 or 5 games, he was just as consistent and as dominant as I've seen Dom play. And to start the season off with some great consistency and belief, he's worked really hard to earn the right to be that kind of football player. So, we're excited for him, and I still think he would tell you there's still probably another level of excellence that will continue to occur, but playing really consistent football, being a centerpiece of the defense, that's huge for us.
Coach, given the relative importance of a game like playing Kansas State early in the season, from a personal aspect, how higher was your level of giddiness, anxiety, or anything like that before that game? Or did you try to keep it, like I said, on a personal level, just try to keep it the same as any other home opener or season opener?
Yeah, I think every opener, you don't sleep for about 2 weeks, just because you don't know what your team is and you don't know what you're about. So to me, the jersey or the opponent doesn't really matter. To me, it's I know I said this last week, it's about your own team. And, I still think you feel that way through, the midpoint until the midpoint of the season. Who are you? What are we about? Like, it's 4 quarters of football, and there was some good, there was some bad. There's got to be great growth between week 1 and week 2. I still think this football team, you got no idea who we are and what we're about. It was great I think we grew Saturday. You saw us grow even from quarter to quarter. But boy, how do you respond? How do you continue to move yourself forward? It's a one day at a time journey here. And I feel that's that way no matter who the opponent truly is.
Coach, you guys had probably 6 or 7 guys rotate in at linebacker throughout the game, and it didn't seem like there was much drop-off.
Yeah.
At a position that's as physical as that, how important is that depth?
In our defense, it's critical. We play 3 linebackers on the field, and to me, that group and I think the shared experiences that they've had so far in their own journeys, I think the confidence that group has, and honestly, the competition. And I think one of the great things about this team, whether it's receiver or whether it's on the D-line or whether it's at linebacker right now, at tight end, safety, you better come to practice if you want to play on Saturday. And the great thing is we'll figure out who's the players who can sustain it. I did think that group played really physical football on Saturday. A lot of guys played. And, again, I think the guys that play every Saturday are going to have to earn the right in practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and be ready to play on Saturday. So I think that part's exciting for me because it keeps practice is you better come ready to play or you're not playing on Saturday if you don't have a great practices on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And there's a lot of competition right now, and certainly that room, it's evident.